Karen reported me for code violations, then found out I'm the town mayor. If I'd known she'd ruin my fountain, I might have skipped the banner. But we had reason to celebrate. My wife had just beaten breast cancer. After 8 long months of radiation, hospital bills, and sleepless nights on lumpy chairs, she was finally home. Our son helped me hang the banner between the 2 sycamores on our front lawn. Welcome back, Clara. You beat it. Simple, earnest, hours. It stayed up less than 24 hours. Because the next morning, I woke up to a knock on the door and the sound of my fountain choking. That's how it started, with a clipboard and a shattered pump. Her name was Margaret Kendall, but everyone on Sycamore Glen called her Karen. Not behind her back, right to her face. She wore it like armor, as if being the most disliked woman on the block somehow validated her self-importance. "This isn't permitted," she announced, standing at my porch with that damn clipboard. "Your banner, the water fixture, both violate HOA visual uniformity standards." I blinked. "What HOA?" she smirked. "Crestline Estates Homeowners Council? There is no HOA. This is an open zone township," I replied calmly. "Maybe to you." She sniffed. "But we have community expectations, and I will report this." I stepped onto the porch, folded arms over my chest, reported to who she tapped the clipboard, and walked away. I let it slide at first. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because Clara was asleep in the recliner, finally resting. But mostly because after 3 years of serving as mayor of Crestline, I'd learned to pick my battles. Until now, Karen had been an occasional nuisance: Facebook rants, unwanted flyers, passive-aggressive emails about trash bin placement. Nothing new. But the next day, I received a cease and desist in my mailbox. Not from the town, from her, on fake letterhead, claiming 500-day fines for non-conforming exterior displays and unauthorized garden sculpture. She meant the fountain, the one she'd clearly broken. My wife cried when she saw it. That's when I stopped letting it slide. I attended the next HOA meeting, held in a borrowed elementary school multi-purpose room. It was mostly Karen, a folding table, and about 8 confused retirees she'd roped into, thinking this was official business. She opened with, "We need to discuss our mayor's noncompliance." My hand went up. She froze. "Mr. Walker," she said with a thin smile. "That's Mayor Walker," I replied. "And I'd like to make something very clear to everyone in this room. Crestline Township has no active HOA, no council, no enforcement privileges delegated to any private resident." Karen interrupted. "That's not true. We have bylaws." "No. You have Word documents printed at home." I held up the real bylaws, county stamped, verified, digitally sealed. "You forged citations, damaged my property, and created a false regulatory body." Her voice rose. "You're just mad you got caught violating the standards." "No," I said. "I'm mad you made my sick wife cry." Gasps echoed around the room. One of the retirees stood up and said, "I didn't sign up for this." Another leaned to me and whispered, "You're really the mayor." I nodded. Karen turned red, then pale, then red again. The room crumbled around her. But I knew this wasn't over, because people like Karen don't just retreat, they reload. It started with shrubs. 3 days after the meeting collapsed and Karen stormed out with her clipboard in pieces, my front hedge was mysteriously trimmed lopsided, jagged, like it had been butchered with garden shears by a sleep-deprived raccoon. A handwritten citation was tucked into the mailbox: violation bushes encroaching sidewalk by 4.5 inches. Fined $100. Crestline Estates Compliance Unit. There was no such unit. I knew because I wrote the town charter. At first, I thought it was just Karen blowing off steam, like a petty temper tantrum in topiary form. But the next day, my neighbor, Ms. Dolores, an 81-year-old widow who bakes cookies for the neighborhood, called me in tears. "Mayor Walker, I just got fined $250 for my laundry line. Says it's a visual nuisance. But I've hung it there for 30 years. She sent me a photo, same letterhead, same forged seal. That's when I realized Karen had launched a campaign. I spent the next week gathering evidence. 12 residents had received fake citations, most of them elderly, all of them confused. Karen was hand-delivering these notices in the early mornings, signing them by authority of the HOA board, which didn't exist. Some neighbors were so afraid they actually paid the fines Venmo, PayPal, even cash in envelopes left in her mailbox. The total grift over $1,700 in fake fines. That was no longer nuisance. That was fraud. I brought the evidence to our town attorney, Anita Greer, sharp, unshakable, and wicked with legal precedent. She's impersonating a civic authority and committing financial fraud, Anita said, flipping through the file. If she's done this in more than one jurisdiction, we can charge her at the county level. She's been escalating ever since I told her I'm the mayor. Anita raised an eyebrow. She didn't know she knows now. By Thursday, I'd issued a formal cease and desist on city letterhead, complete with my official seal, demanding Karen halt all activities posing as Crestline Township enforcement. We delivered it by certified mail. She sent it back, ripped in half, so she wanted a war. I gave her one. I called a town hall, not just for her but for everyone. We filled the municipal theater. Residents packed the seats, curious and tense, whispering about the citations, the HOA that never was, and the garden fountains that somehow turned to battlegrounds. I walked on stage with two easels. One showed a blown-up version of Karen's fake citation. The other showed our actual municipal seal. I held them up side by side. This, I said, pointing to hers, is illegal. This is harassment, and this stops now. I clicked the projector. A slideshow rolled screenshots of Venmo payments, photographs of her compliance patrol gear, surveillance video of Karen yanking a kid's chalk drawing off the sidewalk, inciting graffiti. Gasps filled the room. I ended with a screenshot of our real town zoning code highlighted in yellow. No private body may enforce aesthetic regulations on private property without formal municipal charter. Karen showed up halfway through the presentation. She tried to storm the stage. A police officer blocked her. "This is slander," she yelled. "I'm protecting the community. He's letting people turn Crestline into a dump." I faced her. Calm, cold. "You've taken money, falsified authority, and harassed residents under a fake title. You're a disgrace," she snapped, "and you're under investigation." I replied. The officer handed her a notice Karen Kendall summoned to appear before the Crestline Civil Ethics Committee. Later that night, my front porch was egged. I smiled, because I knew when a bully throws eggs, it's because they've got nothing else left to throw. There's a special kind of arrogance required to forge a government seal, and Karen Kendall had it in spades. After the town hall exploded, I figured she might back down, take the public shaming, disappear for a while, maybe even apologize. But not Karen. The next morning, an envelope arrived at town hall. No return address. Inside was a typed letter on a faux letterhead from something called the Greater Crestline Municipal Appearance Commission. It looked official. At first glance, the letter accused me, the mayor, of abusing town resources, engaging in personal vendettas, and weaponizing office against a concerned civilian enforcer. The signature, Margaret K. Kendall, Executive Field Liaison. She'd made up an entire agency just to make herself sound like she had a badge. I turned the letter over in my hands. I wasn't angry. I was impressed. This wasn't petty anymore. This was psychological warfare, HOA cosplay on a delusional scale. But the real kicker wasn't the letter. It was the seal she had stamped into the bottom corner. A knockoff of the official Crestline seal. Almost perfect. But the Latin motto was misspelled. Fiat Justitia became Fiat Justinia. She'd forged a legal document, and that changed everything. I called Anita, our town attorney. She forged a government seal, I said flatly. There was silence on the line. Then okay, gloves off. We submitted everything to the county prosecutor's office, not as harassment anymore. As a felony count, forgery of a municipal emblem carries weight, prison weight, especially when it's used to extract money and intimidate residents. Meanwhile, I didn't say a word publicly. I let the case build behind closed doors. Karen, on the other hand, she held a press conference. I found out when the local news station posted a clip. Neighborhood watch captain pushes back against mayor's authoritarian overreach. Karen stood on her driveway flanked by two folding chairs, a $20 podium from Office Depot, and a makeshift banner that read, "Save Crestline, Stop Political Tyranny." She called me corrupt, claimed I was using cancer sympathy to dodge code enforcement, even dragged Clara's name into it. That was the moment she lost me completely. It wasn't about rules anymore, or property, or even me. She was hurting my family. I'd had enough. That night, I held a private meeting with 4 residents who'd been previously harassed by Karen. 2 of them were still afraid to speak up. One woman, Mrs. Tran, told me she was threatened with fines for having Buddhist prayer flags on her porch. Another neighbor, Raul, said Karen told his teenage son to prove he was legal when he mowed the front yard shirtless. We documented everything. I asked them one question: "Are you willing to come forward?" All 4 nodded. Then I made one more call to State Attorney General's Office Housing Division. See, this wasn't just a local drama anymore. Karen's actions touched protected groups, race, religion, disability, age, and now with fake seals, forged citations, and public intimidation, it was a full-on civil rights investigation. 2 days later, state agents showed up on her doorstep with a warrant. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. Karen came out screaming, wrapped in a shawl, hair unbrushed, clipboard still clutched like a crucifix. "You have no idea who I am," she shouted. "You're attacking me because I care. I care about this community. You care about controlling it," I whispered from my driveway. They took her laptop, her fake letterhead, her council archives, everything. That night, Claire and I stood in our kitchen with the lights low, sipping tea. Layla slept upstairs, finally at peace. "Think she'll stop?" Clara asked. "She can't hurt anyone else now." I said, "And you?" she asked. "You good?" I paused. "I wasn't before, but now I'm tired, but I'm clear." She kissed my cheek. Then we turned off the porch light. The courtroom was small, not like what you see on TV, no wooden pews or gavel-banging judge. Just a municipal hearing room with stained carpet, squeaky chairs, and a county seal on the wall that looked like it hadn't been dusted since 1997. But the weight in the room, you could feel it pressing down like a thundercloud. Karen sat across from me, wearing a beige sweater set like she was there for bridge club. No clipboard this time, no sunglasses, just tight lips and a stack of papers in a fraying manila folder. Her lawyer, young, jittery, probably court-appointed, kept whispering in her ear. I didn't bring a lawyer, didn't need one, because everything I had to say, I was going to say directly. The presiding officer, a woman named Judith Gray from the state board, started the session with a tone that could cut granite. "This hearing pertains to charges of impersonation of a municipal officer, forgery of a civic seal, fraudulent financial collection, harassment of residents, and misuse of public space." She turned to Karen. "Ms. Kendall, do you understand the severity of these allegations?" Karen folded her hands in her lap. "I was just trying to help," she said quietly. "No one else was doing anything." That was her defense. When it was my turn to speak, I stood slowly. My palms were steady. My voice not angry, not proud, just full. "I've served this town for 3 years. I began. I've buried residents after fires. I've cut ribbons at schools. I've fought for affordable housing, veterans aid, and better stormwater systems." I looked directly at Karen. I never imagined I'd have to defend myself against a neighbor armed with a clipboard and a fantasy of power. Murmurs rose from the observers. I continued. "Ms. Kendall didn't just lie. She built a false system. She exploited trust, impersonated government bodies, and punished residents who didn't look like her, worship like her, or decorate like her." I paused, and then she dared to involve my wife, who had just survived cancer. That drew a quiet gasp from one corner of the room. Karen's face tightened, but she said nothing. The state presented their case digital records of the fake HOA's payment accounts, witness testimonies from the 4 residents I'd gathered, a forensic analysis of her fake seal confirmed as forged, surveillance footage of her delivering citations at dawn. By the end, there was nothing left for her to say, but she said something anyway. "I didn't mean harm," she muttered. "People were letting the neighborhood slip. I had to do something." Judith Gray's voice was like ice. "No, Ms. Kendall, you chose to do something, and you did it illegally." They ruled in 27 minutes. Karen was found guilty on all municipal counts. The state charged her with a Class C felony for forgery, plus fines totaling over $15,000 in restitution to neighbors she'd defrauded. She was banned from holding any official position, real or fictional, within any community or housing organization for 10 years. And she was placed under supervised probation for 2 years. No jail time, but she'd never be in control again. Outside, a few reporters hovered. I didn't speak to them. Instead, I walked down the courthouse steps, into the parking lot, and let the sun hit my face. It felt different somehow, lighter. Clara was waiting in the car. When I got in, she squeezed my hand. "Done?" she asked. "Finally?" That weekend, I held a real town meeting. No drama, no fire, just chairs set in a circle on the community lawn. Dozens came. Some brought cookies. Others brought lawn chairs. We talked about safety, beautification, real programs, real issues. We voted to create a neighborhood advisory board open, rotating, inclusive. No fines, no fake rules, just neighbors helping neighbors. Ms. Dolores signed up, so did Raul's son. Even Mrs. Tran brought spring rolls. Later that night, as the moon climbed over Crestline, I walked past the pool. Someone had taken down the old faded sign that Karen once posted, "Private pool, HOA access only." In its place was a chalkboard, "Welcome neighbor, come on in." The fence wasn't much to look at, just 4 panels of cedar with a small wooden gate and a brass latch. I built it myself after Clara's second round of treatment, not to keep people out, but to give her a quiet spot for morning tea and hummingbirds. Funny thing is, Karen hated that fence, said it didn't match the colonial aesthetic of the block, said it looked personal, like someone was trying to separate from the neighborhood. In her mind, unity looked like uniformity. But now, every house on Sycamore Glen has their own fence, some white picket, some trellised, some wrapped in flowering jasmine. And not one of them has gotten a fake citation in months, because Karen's fence, the one she tried to build between people, it's gone. After her hearing, Karen moved out quietly. No one threw eggs. No one gloated. A single moving van arrived one morning before dawn. She left the porch light on. That was the only goodbye. Some people say she moved to her sister's place upstate. Others say she's working retail now, somewhere that doesn't involve clipboards. I never checked. I didn't need to. In the months that followed, Crestline changed. Not all at once. Not with parades or banners, but with little things: kids chalking the sidewalks again without fear, neighbors sharing tools across yards, people asking instead of assuming. We planted a community garden on the lot where the old HOA flyers used to be pinned. Ms. Dolores comes out every morning to water the peppers. Raul's son built a bench with his school's woodshop class. I added a small plaque in front of the rosemary bush. This land thrives when shared, and it does. Clara's health stabilized. Her laugh came back stronger than ever. One day she stood in our yard, took a sip of coffee, and said, "Remember when that fence almost became a court case?" I laughed. "I think about it every time I latch the gate." She grinned. "It's a nice fence." "Because it's ours," I said. "Some folks still ask me if I'll run for re-election. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't become mayor for drama. I did it to serve. But this chapter, it reminded me what service really looks like. Not just budgets and zoning plans. It's standing up when no one else does. It's drawing a line when people cross it, not out of pride, but out of principle. It's holding the clipboard only if you're willing to hold the weight behind it. Karen didn't break Crestline. She revealed it. She showed us where the cracks were between comfort and justice, between silence and truth. And when she fell, she forced us to choose what kind of town we wanted to be. We chose better. A few weeks ago, a young couple moved into the house next to ours. Two moms, twin toddlers, and a pit bull named Gus. They hung a rainbow flag from the balcony and waved every time we passed. On the fourth day, they came over with a pie and asked if we had any fence paint. I handed them a brush. Whatever color you want. I said, "This isn't an HOA neighborhood, right?" they asked, half joking. "No," I replied, smiling. "This is your neighborhood now. Have you ever been told you didn't belong in your own space? Have you ever seen someone abuse power under the mask of rules? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what real community looks like and who gets to define it. Share your story, your thoughts, your moment of standing up. Because fences can divide or they can define the boundaries we defend together. And sometimes, the strongest ones are built from the truth,